Main Street, Hillsborough. Specifically, I represent clients who live on Mississippi Avenue and are involved in Coleman versus the city of Crystal City. All of my clients either bought or are very near the property in question. I guess I would start by saying that my clients and me personally are not opposed to the project. The problem is, I think that you've gotten the cart before the horse. And with all due respect to the folks that want the project done in 3 days, I don't think we would be opposed to it being done in 3 days if it were done right. And part of the problem is the homework hasn't been done. The mayor read off a series of issues that are to be addressed today: health, safety, morals, traffic, fire hazards, overcrowding, fire, police, municipal expenses, property values, and the stability of the property. I was very appreciative of Mr. Niemeyer's presentation. This is the second time I've heard it. But perhaps it's just my paranoia as a lawyer. Mr. Niemeyer hasn't put anything in writing. And he makes a very excellent speaker and provides very good information. But I am from Jefferson County, and at this point, it's a pig in a poke. Wings isn't obligated to any of the issues, both the zoning ordinance compliance analysis and the non-ordinance concerns. Mr. Niemeyer presented them in a very nice presentation. It was entered into the record, but there is no enforcement mechanism as we speak today. If Wings doesn't follow the proposals that Mr. Niemeyer put on during his presentation, what is the city's authority to force them to do that? Do you think that you can make Mr. Niemeyer do it? Because you can't. And that's what you're here to do. That is, hold the developer to its promises. And that's what my clients are asking you to do. Create a mechanism that will provide those $75,000 a year jobs. Because I haven't seen anything that guarantees that. Hold the developer to its promise that it will cover those processes that it plans. Hold the developer to its promise that it won't pollute your environment. I have no reason to believe that Wings, or nor do my clients, that Wings Development is setting out to violate its promises. But I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. And this wouldn't be the first developer or the first salesman that had every good intention, but wasn't able to follow through. And I guess I just don't see what the rush is to make sure that this process gets done this quickly, when I believe it's your obligation to hold the developer's feet to the fire and make sure it does what it's supposed to do. The contract that you've entered into, the lease agreement, says in a very important part that the landlord, and that's you, quote, will not impose any restrictions or change land use laws by ordinance that would harm or obstruct development of the proposed project on the demised premises. That means once this deal is done, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. You cannot, contractually, you are prohibited from fixing it. That makes it all the more important that you get this right the first time. At this point, I would also like to, if it's all right with the city attorney, I will either put on evidence or provide testimony that my clients will provide testimony that their property values will be depreciated by the building of this project, so long as there is no buffering requirement. At this point, again, one of the considerations that we would ask the council is that as part of the special conditions to this conditional use permit, that you require a buffering obligation. That is to protect the property adjacent to are very near the site. That property, as one of the previous speakers indicated, is specifically protected in your ordinances, or you are supposed to consider its protection specifically by ordinance. And we would ask that that be done. I would also at this time ask the council to require the developer to provide specific tests or studies with regard to traffic, utilities, fire hazards, city expenditures, municipal expenditures, and the general health, safety, morals, and welfare of the community. At this point, again, and with no disrespect to Mr. Niemeyer, he's doing his job, but his statements are backed by no data. And one of the things that the city can do is obligate the developer to provide you with that information. I would object specifically to the introduction of the evidence presented by city staff, specifically Carrie Friedmeier, with regard to traffic study. Carl Vogt with regard to the traffic study and parking. Chief Bovo with regard to fire safety. Douglas Bruce, Chief of Police, with regard to police protection. And I'm sorry, I can't read this. It is your water superintendent with regard to water use. Specifically because in each of those statements, they rely on no actual data and specifically rely on Mr. Niemeyer's unsupported statements during various presentations. As such, I do not believe that they are credible evidence to be considered by the council. With that, I would just ask that my statements and my comments be considered as testimony at this hearing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Melanie Jesper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Melody Jesper. I'm a resident of Ward 1 and a lifelong resident of Crystal City. Some of my comments have already been mentioned, but I've got a statement, so I'll read it. And I know the council is overwhelmed with everything that's been going on in the last year and a half. But in December of 2008, this council and the Planning and Zoning Board decided to delay moving forward on considering if K-Day loans should be considered conditional use. Basically because there was a pending lawsuit in another municipality. So because of that, I don't understand why this administration is going forward on this conditional use permit, even though there are two pending lawsuits. The first challenging the validity of the purchase and lease of the land due to sunshine law violations, and the second lawsuit that Mr. Sweeney spoke of that challenges even the validity of Ordinance 1470, which determines who should give the recommendation for this conditional use permit. I'm concerned as a resident of this town that approval of this permit will only put the city in a more dangerous